Ever since I was a young child, I always imagined telling my story in a documentary-style manner, where I was to be celebrated for my accolades and talents, the center of attention, awe, and praise. Ironically enough, the center of my story is far from being me. I was born in Colombia, 1989, to a good family, had an incredibly loving grandfather, all of us extremely close-knit. I remember ever since I was a young boy, I wanted to be great. Didn't know how or what that looked like, but I felt in my heart a calling to greatness. Fame, fortune, in lamest terms, I dreamed of making it, as some would call it. Fast forward 9 years, my parents made the decision to head north due to the insecurities of life that plagued my home country, and decided on Toronto. This decision was incredibly difficult for me, as it meant leaving my family behind. To make a long story short, leaving began some deep identity issues in me, an identity that I would find in music, specifically in hip-hop. I had found my calling to greatness, and at the age of 12, I began my inexhaustible pursuit. I was going to make it, my name written in lights, fortune, and all else that tags along. With finding my identity in hip-hop culture, the devil had also found an avenue to consume my young mind with a distorted identity of what a young Hispanic male was to look like. As many other ethnic kids would attest to, and especially growing up in the 2000s, there weren't too many popular sources to turn to that encouraged embracing your ethnic roots. In contrast, hip-hop didn't just push you to embrace your roots, but to boast in them. Unfortunately, along with that, a lot of other messages are conveyed, most of which are ungodly. These other messages pushed me to hang around the wrong crowd and make rash decisions early in life. At 17, I began doing concerts, getting my music out there, and started to gain recognition. One thing led to another. Radio stations started playing my music. The events got bigger, signed contracts, shows on the road, appearances on televisions. The names got bigger, the venues got bigger, as well as my ego and my sin. But I was on an endless chase, a chase for greatness. I was making it. At the same time, my conscience was awakening. I was 18 and I had lived a lot, a little too much. Overwhelming guilt began to set in a lot of the decisions I had made and who I was. During this time, I also found out I was going to be a father, which makes you pause, because you begin to ponder on what you really have to offer to a life aside your own. Being who I was. Coincidentally, I was also in the midst of breaking out of a contract, and part of the deal involved doing a couple of small gigs downtown. In one of these events, my manager picked me up, and as we were driving to the venue, he realized he needed to pick up some girls and didn't have enough space in his car. I called one of my friends so I could switch cars. Ironically, my friend had been chasing a girl at church. So here I am, downtown Toronto, asking my manager to drop me off at a youth group. But as you can imagine, God was at work. I was invited to a youth retreat, which I decided to go to. The pastor's first words when we arrived and he began preaching were something to the effect of, "It has been appointed this weekend to meet your Maker face to face." He wasn't wrong. One of the topics being discussed in one of the many teachings that weekend was forgiveness, but it had to do with forgiving others for what they had done to you in life. I spoke to one of the leaders and explained to him that the only person that needed forgiveness was me. I was able to confess my sin and trust that Jesus paid for it all. God granted me a deep sense of peace that I had never felt in my life. They also emphatically proclaimed that Christ died for me, and because he did, I could not be the same. Sorry, guys. I didn't understand it then, but God had granted me life. Ezekiel 36:26-27 states, "And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes and be careful to obey my rules." That is exactly what he did. The affections of my heart had been radically transformed from the inside out, and I immediately shifted from pursuing my own will to wanting to discern what His will was to pursue it. The Spirit had properly adjusted my perspective to perceive Christ's worth in my vain pursuit for what they actually were. As Philippians 3:8 states, "Indeed, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For His sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish in order that I may gain Christ." All my colleagues went off to have successful careers, Grammys, platinum selling records, notoriety, recognition, millions of streams, etc. I have crossed paths with people who the world celebrates on the highest of levels, the people that some would say made it. I'm 31 now, happily married to one woman, the love of my life. I have 4 beautiful daughters, a home, and while I don't drive a foreign 2-seater, I drive a minivan. I have found treasure. As Jesus Himself states in Matthew 13:44, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. I can never regret casting my crown at His feet and trading it all to be found in Him. Now, being part of the Redemption worship team, I get to pour my praise to an audience of one, the only audience that will ever matter, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, my King and my Lord. Some might look in my life and say, why would you trade it all the potential, all the dreams, all the opportunities? But God has set my heart on this truth. One day the curtain will be pulled back. The Son of Man will be revealed in all His glory, and we will all stand before His holy throne of judgment to give an account. On that day, I will not have large properties or an extensive list of accolades and awards, but I will see Him face to face and be welcomed into eternity with open arms. So it begs to ask the question, who really made it? Whose treasure really counted? What really mattered in this life? Only Christ.